Good morning, everyone. This meme really made me think this morning. It really is a matter of perspective. Free speech and hate speech is just a matter of what your opinion is on what's on the flag, right? Really, and that's interesting to think about. And some people wrap themselves up in that identity and just can't escape it. It's really interesting, right? Really interesting times we live in currently. And another meme to start the day. Honestly, who could re-elect this disaster? And it's got a picture of Justin Trudeau, and it says Trudeau's credibility. And all of these have big red X's beside them. So NAFTA, Saudi Arabia, groping, ethics for ethics violations, gender budget. Yes, budgets are meant to address financial situations, not genders. Deficit. Returning ISIS fighters. Oh, those strong voices in the community, right? Full-time jobs, deficits. China, deficits on there twice. Australia, Omar Khadr, Joshua Boyle, open borders, M&M, Aboriginal inquiry, and we're going to get to that in just a minute. Pipelines, diversity, which is just a meaningless buzzword now, Mr. Trudeau. And this is incredible. We're starting with memes, and this article is a meme in and of itself, and I understand the meaning of meme in this article, blah, blah, blah. Still, this article is just a caricature of itself. It is ridiculous. And the National Post is tweeting, quote, "Dodgeball isn't just problematic, it's an unethical tool of oppression." Researchers. Really? This article jumps the shark hard. It's pretty funny, though. So we're going to read it because it's a funny way to start a Tuesday. National Post says, "Dodgeball isn't just problematic, it's an unethical tool of oppression." The games children play in schoolyards are famously horrible if you stop and think about them. Tag, for example, singles out one poor participant, often the slowest child, as the dehumanized it, who runs vainly in pursuit of the quicker ones. Capture the Flag is nakedly militaristic. British Bulldog has obvious jingoistic colonial themes. Red Ass, known in America as Butts Up, involves deliberate imposition of corporal punishment on losers. But none ruse the passion of reform-minded educational progressives quite like Dodgeball, the team sport in which players throw balls at each other, trying to hit their competitors and banish them to the sidelines of shame. A trio of education theorists will argue that Dodgeball is not only problematic in the modern sense of displaying hierarchies of privilege based on athletic skill, but that it is outright miseducative. I worked in schools. Kids love Dodgeball. Okay, back to the article. Dodgeball is not just unhelpful to the development of kind and gentle children who will become decent citizens of a liberal democracy. It is actively harmful to this process, they say. Dodgeball is a tool of oppression. It is not saved because some kids like it, according to an abstract for the presentation led by Joy Butler, professor of curriculum and pedagogy at the University of British Columbia. Quote, "As we consider potential of physical education to empower students by engaging them in critical and democratic practices, we conclude that the hidden curriculum offered by Dodgeball is antithetical to this project, even when it reflects the choice of the strongest and most agile students," it reads. "This hidden curriculum in Dodgeball is far more nefarious than your average gym class runaround. Dodgeball is miseducative because it reinforces the 5 faces of oppression, as defined by the late Iris Marion Young, a social and political theorist at the University of Chicago." Okay, hold on. Just before I tell you what the 5 faces of oppression are, I have to tell you, I worked in a children's mental health facility. We had a gym. At the facility, we were able to go and use the gym. All of these children would do very well at Dodgeball in a regular school because they were athletic and able to play and whatever, but some of them really weren't. Okay, so my statement, all of them would do well. A lot of them would do well because they were very athletic and they were the usually active ones, right? But other kids would come in and we'd have autistic kids who wouldn't do well. But you know what? They really like to play Dodgeball too. And they wanted the adults to play. They didn't like it when the adults were out. They wanted the adults to play. The adults were by far better than the most athletic child, but they wanted the adults to play. And you know what the athletic kids did? They played fair. They played fair. And so did everybody else. Kids who were really good at Dodgeball, kids who weren't good at Dodgeball, and if they didn't play fair, the group got them to play fair, or they weren't allowed to play. And that was my job, right? Got to help out the kids and make sure it's even. But The kids self-regulated. It was actually a really good exercise for most of them. And I know that firsthand. I've played dodgeball for years, like literally years with kids, all different groups of kids. They loved it. They would get excited when we played it. And they were able to police it really well for most part because those kids were motivated to join in. They wanted to play, so they'd play by the rules. Mostly. So, okay, let's go back to the 5 faces of oppression. But yeah, my point is they like to play with the athletic kids, and everybody played pretty well fair most of the time. So, like, this is just insanity. It's really funny. But we haven't even got to the jumping the shark yet. And I know I'm talking a lot. I'm sorry. I'll get back to the article. It's still so funny. Okay. As Bueller's abstract describes it, those faces are marginalization, powerlessness, helplessness of those perceived as weaker individuals through the exercise of violence and dominance by those who are considered more powerful. Young's list of these fundamental types of oppression also includes exploitation and cultural domination. Ooh. The audience for this argument is primarily teachers, including gym teachers who are identified as part of the problem for not acting on values they otherwise understand and claim to hold. Quote, despite the fact that many physical educators understand their vital role in helping students develop robust, equal, productive relationships and critical awareness, their practices on the ground do not always reflect this agenda. The presenters write, we suggest that this tension becomes sharply visible in the common practice of allowing students to play dodgeball. Can you imagine if these people are training your child's teacher? Holy cow. You're letting the oppressive nature of children run rampant. 5 faces of oppression in your classroom, sir. How dare you? Who cares if the kids want to play it? Who cares if it's summertime and they're, going to have a bit of fun? Who cares? Indeed. This is school. We'll have none of that. Back to the article. For example, when Ben Stiller, this is where they jump the shark, and Vince Vaughn teamed up for the 2004 slapstick comedy Dodgeball, a true underdog story. They included the scene with Hank Azaria as Patches O'Houlihan, billed as the Wayne Gretzky or Michael Jordan of Dodgeball. Quote, remember, O'Houlihan tells a boy keen to learn the game, dodgeball is a sport of violence, exclusion, and degradation. So when you're picking the players in gym class, remember to pick the biggest, strongest kids for your team. That way you can all gang up on the weaker ones. Like Winston here. Winston, a stereotypical nerd, gets a laugh here where he gets hit in the head and his glasses fall off. For many students, this is the miserable experience of schoolyard dodgeball. I'm going to pause here. We had rules. You couldn't throw above the waist. Okay, you had to hit them in the leg. Come on, we're not animals. Back to the article. For teachers trying to foster the virtues of caring and inclusion on this view, dodgeball is counterproductive. Sport can teach ethical behavior and give students a chance to practice it. And in this sense, it is important training for citizens in a democracy. This goal is impeded when cruelty, oppression, and violence are built into the rules. Games become more like cruel initiation ceremonies into a brutal world in which might makes right, as O'Houlihan puts it, before he starts throwing wrenches at his players as a form of training. If you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball. The problem with such a sink-or-swim view of physical education is that at school, games are not just for fun. They are often deliberately chosen as part of a broader education strategy that is meant to align with other aspects of the student's moral and physical development. I scroll down a bit. For fun's sake is good, Burns says, but when a teacher is formally telling students rules for a game, fun can also reinforce behavior patterns. For good or ill, the moral problem with dodgeball, he said, is that it encourages students to aggressively single others out for dominance and to enjoy that exclusion and dominance as a victory. Well, like, that's the game. And my goodness, it's pretty funny because you have jailbreaks and all sorts of other things to make it fun for everybody who gets singled out, and maybe next time they get to win too. Right? Everybody gets kind of a turn. Have you played dodgeball at all, the people who wrote this? This report is so patently ridiculous, mainly because they actually cite Dodgeball, the 2004 Ben Stiller and Vince Vaughn comedy, as proof that dodgeball is terrible. Like, that would be me saying Wedding Crashers is proof that weddings are terrible or great or whatever. It's fiction. It's fantasy. What ridiculousness. Okay, I'm going to skip ahead on this one. I think I've got to get right to this. So I talked about the Indigenous women's genocide, and this report was put out yesterday. And, well, here we go. CTV News is reporting Trudeau declines to call the deaths of Indigenous women and girls a genocide. Speaking in the Grand Hall of the Canadian Museum of History, facing Parliament Hill across the Ottawa River, the inquiry's chief commissioner, Marianne Buller, sorry if I got it wrong, said that nothing short of an absolute paradigm shift is in order from all levels of government and public institutions to address the issue. One her commission labeled frankly as a genocide. The tragedy, Buller said, is a direct result of a persistent and deliberate pattern of systemic racial and gendered, human and indigenous rights violations and abuses, perpetuated historically and maintained today by the Canadian state. The term has instantly become a flashpoint, the subject of arguments over whether it denotes intentionality in the hundreds of killings and disappearances the inquiry examined, whether it's fair, and if it does, whether the label matters. For his part, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau stopped short of using the term, despite being directly asked to do so in a call from the crowd when he spoke after accepting the report. Instead, Trudeau said violence against Indigenous women and girls is, quote, not a relic of Canada's past, but part of its present, and the justice system has failed them. Quote, time and again, we have heard of the disappearance, violence, or even death being labeled low priority or ignored, he said. He receives the report from the commissioner after they performed a traditional ceremony, including coating its pages with medicine. The inquiry report itself used the term genocide dozens of times, starting in the first paragraph of Buller's preface. Quote, this report is about deliberate race, identity, and gender-based genocide, she wrote. After Monday's ceremony, Buller said the commission does not need to hear the word genocide out of Trudeau's mouth. It heard it from the families and survivors. That Indigenous women and girls have been victims of genocide was an inescapable conclusion from the commissioner, she said. And, well, here's a Reddit meme that compares genocides. So, yeah, you can take that for what it's worth. Links in the description if you want to have a look, but look at those. And here's the RCMP from 2015 on CBC Radio confirming, well, 70% of murdered Indigenous women are killed by Indigenous men. So that seems strange to label it as a genocide when, like, the Canadian government did that, or I'm not sure. Here's the article. RCMP Commissioner Bob Paulson confirms that 70% of the solved murders of Indigenous women were committed by Indigenous men. That statistic was cited by Aboriginal Affairs Minister Bernard Valcourt at a meeting with Prairie Chiefs in March, and it was backed by Commissioner Paulson in a letter this week to Treaty 6 Grand Chief Bernice Marshall. Sorry, I forgot that name wrong. Billy Joe Lebucan was at a meeting with Minister Valcourt. Lebucan is the chief of the Lebucan Lake Band in northwest Alberta. Quote, all the things that are happening now are only a symptom of what's happening in our communities. You go the reserves, we're underfunded. There's so many social problems, so that's why I wasn't all that surprised when I hear these numbers, said Lebucan. So that's interesting. Here's another slant on this from sorry about that. The MadSloth says, quote, he just got up in front of Canada and said, we need to take the sexual abuse of Indigenous women more seriously because Canadians are, of course, genocidal monsters. He didn't quite say that. At the same time, his Liberals are set to pass Bill C-75 that reduces punishment and enforcement of sexual assaults and of terrorism. And then she says FFS. And if you don't know what that is, well, I'll let you know. So, Bill C-75 reclassifies summary offenses to hybrid offenses. And this is very, very dense. But I'm just going to read the top part here, and we're going to jump to hear which offenses they've reclassified from indictable offenses. Indictable means you have to go to court, to summary offenses, which means you don't necessarily have to go to court. It could just be a fine. Okay? They've reclassified these things. That's what's happening. And this is from the justice.gc.ca about Bill C-75. Okay, so summary offenses are generally intended to target less serious conduct causing disturbance, trespassing at night, for which the current default maximum penalty is normally a fine for not exceeding $5,000, 6 months in prison, or both. Maximum imprisonment penalties for summary convictions offenses, however, vary, and some are punishable by 2 years less a day. Indictable offenses address more serious matters, aggravated assault, robbery, murder, for which the maximum penalties range from 2 years to life imprisonment. On indictment, the courts also have the ability to impose a fine in their discretion, in addition to other sentencing options. The third class of offenses, hybrid offenses, target types of conduct for which the seriousness can vary greatly depending on the circumstances of the case. Hybrid offenses allow the Crown to choose whether to proceed by indictment or summary conviction. Decisions on how to proceed will be based on a variety of factors, including the seriousness of the alleged conduct, any previous convictions, and the type of sentence the Crown intends to seek given the circumstances of the alleged offense and offender. We're moving away, this is me now, we're moving away from one law for everyone. You understand what this is saying? What you did is now dependent on who you are and all of the things that stacked up before that, not on the actions that day or that evening or whatever the actions specifically related to that offense. You understand? So here's the offenses that they want to trade, and they're not trading summary convictions up. Well, they are. They're increasing the sentence from 6 months to 2 years less a day. So they are increasing it, and there's a whole paper on that I've got linked here. I'm not going to go through it. It's too dense. This video is already too long. But this is important. This is important. So Rob Nicholson, the MP from Niagara Falls, has this on his website. So thank you, Rob. And it's as important to read, so I'm going to read this. June 30th, 2018, the following is a list of indictable offenses in the Criminal Code of Canada, which Bill C-75 proposes to make eligible for summary conviction. Essentially, Bill C-75 proposes to allow summary convictions as a possible prosecutorial option for crimes that were previously indictable offenses. Indictable offenses are some of the most serious crimes recognized in the Criminal Code of Canada. Consequently, if C-75 receives royal assent, it has not yet, without amendment, crimes traditionally punishable by up to 10 years imprisonment could be reduced to a fine. This is unacceptable. Conservatives are very concerned that Bill C-75 opens the possibility to reduce penalties for some of the most serious crimes in Canada. The purpose of this document is to be used as a tool for quick reference. The order of the offense titles below are as they are listed in C-75. If the reader requires further details on the crimes being affected by C-75, please refer to the bill text of C-75, which can be found here. And if you go there, you can hit Control F and start typing in like sabotage, and it'll bring you right to the list. Alternatively, the reader may want to refer to the current text in the criminal code, be found here. So this whole link is in the description. Here's a list of offenses being reclassified from indictable to hybrid. Okay, sabotage, possession of forged document, passport, etc., fraudulent use of certified citizenship. Offenses in relation to military forces, punishment of rioter, concealment of identity, neglect by peace officer, unlawful drilling, order by governor in council, possession of explosive, note, change in title of offense, providing or collecting property for certain activities, fraud on the government, breach of trust by public officer, municipal corruption, influencing municipal officer, selling and purchasing office, that's bribery, influencing or negotiating appointments or dealings in offices, disobeying a statute, offenses relating to affidavits, obstructing justice, compounding indictable offenses, corruptly taking reward for recovery of goods, prison breach, permitting or assisting escape, rescue or permitting escape, assisting prisoner of war to escape, corrupting children, obstructing or violence to or arrest of officiating clergymen, common nuisance, dead body, interception of radio-based telephone communications, possession, disclosure of information received from interception of radio-based telecommunications, keeping a gaming or better house, offenses in relation to lotteries and games of chance, cheating at play, keeping a common body house, causing bodily harm by negligence. My goodness, there's like another 100. I'm not going to read them all. Click to the link to see them all. It's incredible. Hold on, I'm going to find some spicy ones. Never mind, I am going to read them all because holy cow. Administering noxious thing, traps likely to cause bodily harm, offenses related place, dangerous operation causing bodily harm, unseaworthy vessel and unsafe aircraft, offense involving bodily harm, impaired driving causing bodily harm, blood alcohol over legal limit, bodily harm, failure or refusal to provide sample, bodily harm, impede attempting to save life, material benefit, trafficking, withholding or destroying documents, trafficking, abducting of person under the age of 16, abducting of person under age of 14, material benefit from sexual services, bigamy, procuring feigned marriages, polygamy, forced marriages, marriage under age of 16, pretending to sodomize marriage, or solemnize marriages, marriage marriage contrary to law, punishable of libel known to be false, punishable of defamatory libel, extortion by libel, punishment for theft, fraudulent taking cattle or defacing brand, punishment for theft of cattle, taking possession, etc., of draft timber, destroying documents or title, fraudulent concealment, disguise with intent, possession of instrument for breaking into coin-operated or currency exchange devices, selling automated master key, possession of property obtained by crime, bringing into Canada property obtained by crime, false pretense or false statement, obtaining execution of valuable security by fraud, damaging documents, offences in relation to registers, using mail to defraud, fraudulent manipulation of stock exchange transactions, prohibited insider trading, gaming in stocks or merchandise, broker reduction stock by selling for their own account, fraudulent concealment of title documents, fraudulent registration of a title, fraudulent sale of a real property, misleading receipt, fraudulent disposal of goods on which money advanced, fraudulent receipt under the Bank Act, disposal of property to defraud creditors, fraud in relation to fares, fraud in relation to valuable minerals, possession of stolen or fraudulent obtained valuable minerals, offenses in relation to mines, books, and documents, privy, false return by public officer, false prospectus, acknowledging instrument and false name, applying or removing marks without authority, threat against an internationally protected person, threat against United Nations or associated personnel, secret commissions, arson by fraudulent purpose, arson by neglect, possession of incendiary material, interfering with saving of wrecked vessel, interfering with marine signal, removing natural bar without permission, occupant injuring building, interfering with international boundary marks, having clippings, I don't know what that is, uttering coin, advertising and dealing in counterfeit money, conspiracy, participation in activities of a criminal organization, breach of a long-term supervision. You know that they didn't decriminalize speeding. They didn't draw that down at all. Here's the Bill C-75. This is written by lawyers in 2018, the Canadian Bar Association. They have some concerns. I'm not going to go through it. It's too dense. And here's Bill C-75. It is in the committee in the Senate currently. It's already had its second reading in Senate, and it's in committee currently. This is what a bill that has passed royal assent looks like. So it'll have to go through a third reading, and then it'll receive royal assent in the House, I would imagine. So I just wanted to show you that's where we're at. There's a whole lot going on, and this is already a super long video, so I'm not going to diatribe on it. I hope that you check out some links, check out the peoplespartyofcanada.ca, and have a wonderful, wonderful day.